June 2024, St. Martin's Road, Canterbury, a residential street like thousands of others across England. Neighbors walked past the house and saw nothing worth a second glance. A woman came and went with shopping bags. An older man was occasionally visible through a window. No shouting came from inside. No police cars arrived. No ambulance. The street remained quiet. But here is what the neighbors could not see. They could not see the condition of the man inside. They could not see the injuries hidden beneath his clothing. They could not see the fear that had taken up residence in the same rooms where a family supposedly lived. And they could not smell. Not yet, because decomposition takes time, and because the body had been moved. What was buried in the back garden? This is the nature of domestic homicide. Not a dramatic explosion visible from the pavement. A normal-looking house on a normal-looking street. The kind of street where you would walk your dog. The kind of street where a man was being beaten while the outside world continued on, unaware. Morin Rickards understood the earth better than most people ever will. For 35 years, he worked beneath the surface, sometimes hundreds of meters down, sometimes in trenches cut into remote landscapes. He was an exploration geologist, a specialist in gold. His job was to go to places where no one had yet looked and determine whether fortunes waited underground. West Africa, South America, remote parts of Asia, places with no paved roads. The work required patience. It required the ability to live for months in isolation. Jeremy had all of those qualities. By every account, he was also kind, mild-mannered, and softly spoken. Not a man who raised his voice, not a man who fought. But in the final weeks of his life, the most dangerous hidden thing was not beneath foreign soil. It was inside his own home, inside his own marriage. The man who had crossed continents could not survive what was waiting for him in a shared house in Canterbury. Mali, 1997. Morin Rickards was in his late 30s, deep into his career as an exploration geologist. He was working in West Africa, a landscape of red dust and heat. And there he met a woman named Morin. She was 23 years old. She already had a young daughter from a previous relationship. Jeremy had no obligation to this woman or this child. He could have walked away. No one would have blamed him. But Jeremy did not walk away. He embraced Morin and her daughter completely. He raised the little girl as his own. He supported her through childhood. He paid for her private school education. The judge later confirmed that the daughter lacked for nothing under Jeremy's care. He married Morin soon after meeting her. For nearly 3 decades, he provided for her and her daughter without hesitation. That is the man Morin Rickards would eventually kill. A man defined by quiet decency and the choice to love a child who was not biologically his. The marriage between Jeremy and Morin Rickards lasted 27 years. That is not a short marriage. That is a lifetime for many couples. The judge accepted something that matters to the full truth of this story. The marriage had been loving. For years, there was genuine affection between Jeremy and Morin. They traveled the world together. They built a shared history across continents. They raised a daughter together. This is not a case about a relationship that was always violent. The judge explicitly stated he was not sentencing Morin on the basis of sustained lifelong abuse. What the court found was an escalation, a change, something that happened in the final chapter of Jeremy's life, not across the entire 27 years. At some point, something shifted. The records do not say exactly when. The videos on Morin's phone do not show the first time she raised her hand. A loving marriage became something else. By June 2024, it was too late. By 2021, the international travel stopped. Jeremy and Morin settled permanently in the United Kingdom. They chose Canterbury. Morin enrolled at Christ Church University to study law. She moved into shared accommodation on St. Martin's Road. The house had multiple tenants. The court would later describe the property as at times chaotic. Jeremy would sometimes stay there with her, a 60-something geologist, retired in all but name, living among students. The work had dried up. He was not getting work during this period. He was in low spirits because of it. The man who had once moved through the world with professional purpose was now quieter, stiller, and increasingly withdrawn. He drank alone at a nearby pub. That is a small detail in the evidence, but a telling one. A man in a stable, happy home does not sit alone at a bar. No one looked too closely at Jeremy Rickards in those months. Not yet. In mid-May 2024, something became visible. Staff at Jeremy's local pub saw bruising on his face. He was 65 years old. He was softly spoken. He was not a man who got into fights. And yet there was bruising, visible enough that the people serving him noticed. No formal report was made. Life continued. In early June, Jeremy stayed in rented accommodation near Canterbury. What the property owners witnessed alarmed them. Jeremy had a gash on his cheek. He was weak. He had not changed his clothes in 3 days. They urged him to go to a hospital. Jeremy did not go. When he returned to St. Martin's Road, other tenants saw worse. Black eyes, a swollen ear, a cauliflower ear. The kind of injury that comes from repeated blunt force trauma. He was visibly deteriorating. People who saw him later described a man who looked defeated, who looked like someone who had been hurt many times. When people asked Jeremy what had happened, he offered explanations. Each one was different. Each one was designed to lead the questioner away from the truth. On one occasion, he said he had been in a car accident. That is a common explanation for domestic injuries. A car accident implies bad luck, not violence. It implies something external, not something happening inside the home. On another occasion, when someone asked about his condition, Jeremy said Morin had been in a bad mood with him. That phrase is heartbreaking in its understatement. A bad mood is not strangulation. A bad mood is not fractured ribs. A bad mood is not a cauliflower ear from repeated trauma. The post-mortem later showed that before his death, Jeremy had been strangled. He was recovering from recent rib fractures. Those were not the injuries that killed him. Those were the injuries that came before. Evidence of a pattern. Evidence of repeated violence against a defenseless man. On June 7th, Morin Rickards took out her phone and started recording. She was not filming a memory she wanted to keep. She was filming herself beating her husband. The footage is difficult to describe without repeating the violence it contains. Morin strikes Jeremy. She mocks him. She calls him British boy, a phrase meant to diminish him, to remind him he does not belong. Jeremy, 65 years old, physically weakened from previous injuries, begs her to stop hitting him. He does not fight back. He begs. Morin tells him she will kill him. She says she has Googled how to do it. She keeps filming. She kept that video on her phone. She did not delete it. Police would eventually find it. Her own recording became one of the most powerful pieces of evidence at her trial. She had created the evidence against herself, and Jeremy in that footage says she might kill him. He knew what was coming. On June 8th, Jeremy Rickards did something ordinary. He topped up the credit on his mobile phone. It was the last activity connected to him that would ever be recorded. When investigators examined the audio around that moment, they heard something in the background, Morin's voice, threatening to kill him. The judge concluded Jeremy was murdered on or around June 9th. That was the date Morin would later tell their daughter he had died. She did not guess. She told her daughter the exact date because she was the one who ended his life on that date. Jeremy was stabbed 5 times in the attic room. 2 wounds pierced his heart. The weapon was never found. The judge stated clearly that Morin intended Jeremy's death. She had threatened to kill him. She had Googled how to do it. The man who searched for hidden things beneath the earth died at the hands of his wife. Morin did not call police. She hid Jeremy's body in a cupboard. Several days later, she dismembered his remains and placed them in a holdall. She moved the bag to the back garden. She hired a maintenance man to cut grass over it. He had no idea what he was concealing. Morin told people Jeremy had died by suicide in Saudi Arabia. She sent fake messages from his phone. The daughter noticed the phrasing was wrong. She contacted Saudi authorities. They had no record of Jeremy entering the country. She reported her father missing to Kent police. On July 11th, Morin was arrested. In the back garden, officers found the holdall. The smell was overpowering. Morin said, "What body?" On March 13th, 2025, the jury found her guilty of murder. She received life imprisonment with a minimum term of 22 years. The judge said he did not know why she killed him. The motive remains unknown.